Hi! For filling in cracks and holes in walls and ceilings, we know that this sort of filler does a pretty good job, this powder-based filler, but it's not so good when it comes to filling in holes and dents in doors, skirting boards, outside window frames, etc. So that's when you need a product like these here. They're known in the trade as 2-pack or 2-part wood fillers. They're available in a range of colours. We've got a natural one there. This one's the white, and they also do a really dark one as well. So they're called 2-pack or 2-part fillers because when you take this little lid off, there's a little tube of hardener there which you've got to add to the filler, and then it activates the process for it to harden. They're extensively used in the trade by painters and decorators. They're really good products, these. They're quite a bit dearer than the traditional powder-based fillers though, but to my mind they're really worth the extra cost, and they really do come into their own when particularly filling in holes on external surfaces. So let's now have a look at a couple of jobs where this filler would be the ideal choice. I've just finished preparing this outside window frame here, and it's previously been finished in an oil-based wood stain in a mahogany finish, and the top part of the window is really in pretty good condition. I'm quite happy with that, but unfortunately it's not so good news on the bottom, particularly on the windowsill. So as you can see over in this corner, it's had some rot there which I've had to remove there, just there, and also in the bottom of the stile of the frame there. So obviously that's going to need filling in with a 2-pack filler. And if we move along, we've got a piece of timber has been gouged out there for some reason. And further along on the bottom part of the window there, you can see that the open joint is visible that's going to need filling. And then further along here we've got both sides of this where the joint is opened up, that's going to need filling there and there. And also along this part of the sill the wood is split, and that has caused the wood stain to come away from the surface. So that's going to need to be filled in as well to make it flush with the existing wood stain. So, but before I put any filler in to the bare wood, what I'm going to need to do is to prime it with some wood stain first of all. So this is the wood stain I'm going to be using on the window I've already prepared. It's made by a company called Sickins. This is the Ceto HLS Plus. It's quite a thin wood stain this, and this is what you use to apply over any bare areas of timber first. So that's what I'm going to be using in a minute on the bits of bare wood I showed you on the window frame. So you need to apply that first, and then on top of that you apply what they call their Filter 7. This is obviously the part of the wood stain which gives it its strength and durability, so you follow up applying that. So I'm going to crack on now and brush some of the thinner wood stain over the bare areas of timber just to prime it up before I fill over the top. I've got my wood stain in the old paint kettle here. Just going to brush it over these bare areas of timber just to prime it up. So obviously you need to give a bit of a wiggle to get into any gaps like that. But there's a bit along the top of the sill there. If I wasn't to put this thin coat of wood stain over the top and just put the filler on it, unfortunately what would happen is the filler eventually would crack and fall off because the moisture would soak straight into the bare timber. So it is important to prime it up first. Good, bit in there. Bit there. Now to get down into this hole down in there, I'm going to be using one of my Fitch brushes. Give it a little wiggle, get down in there. And also to get into there, look, it's an ideal brush, this a size 10 Fitch. I can get him in there, give him a bit of a wiggle. Okay, so that's all those areas primed now. So I need to let that dry. Then I'll better crack on and get on with the filler. I've just finished rubbing this door down ready for painting, but I don't know if the camera can pick this up. Just here, the paint is worn away on the door there, back down to the bare wood. And the reason for that is the key was in the door like that, and every time I opened and shut the door, that other key was bashing into there, which has removed the paint off the surface. And also I can feel quite a dent in the surface there, so it will need filling before I can paint the door. But before I apply the filler over there, we'll need to prime it first, just with a little bit of wood primer. So that's what I'm going to do now, just put some wood primer over this to seal it, so that the filler will get a better grip onto the surface, will adhere better to it. So I'm going to do that now. So I've got a bit of wood primer in here. So I'm just going to brush some of this over the surface. There we are, so that's primed up. So when that's dry, I'll be able to apply some of that 2-pack wood filler over it. Window's all ready for filling in now, and I've got a selection of tools here that I'll be using for filling in the window. So if we start down here, where we've got the hole in the sill and the frame, so my normal filling knife is too big to gain access to that. So what I'm going to be using is this tool here, a 1-inch scraper, which will give me access to there, so I can fill in the holes there. Then further down here, I'm going to be probably using this putty knife to gain access to the little gaps in the joints on the end of the window there. So that's a good tool to use for filling in those sort of little gaps in the timber. And then down here on the wider parts of the windowsill which need filling, I can use my normal 2-inch bendy filling knife. So what I need to do now then is to mix up the filler, and I'll be ready to get cracking on filling in the holes and the splits. So this is the filler I'm going to be using on the window. It's the natural coloured filler here. I'll take the lid off. Inside the tin they always provide a little bendy filling tool, which I don't tend to use, but it's there if you want to use it. And also the little tube or pouch of hardener as well. And when I take the lid off, this always does make me laugh. If you look inside the tin there, you can see it's only half full, and this is a brand new tin. And they're always like this, so it does make me giggle a bit. Okay. So, let's take out a quantity of filler on my filling knife, put it on the board. Now what they suggest is it should be a pea-size amount of the hardener to a golf ball amount of the actual filler there. I'll take the lid off. So you can see I'm going to put about just a little squeeze there. That's all I'm going to need for that much filler. Put the lid back on there. Now the most important thing to bear in mind here, as soon as I introduce the hardener into the filler and mix it in, on a warm day like today I've got about 5 minutes to use that filler. So I only tend to mix up a small amount of filler at a time. If not, it does get wasted because it does dry so quickly. So I'm going to mix the hardener there into the filler. Give it a good old mix up. Like that. Right, that should be fine now. Okay, so I'm ready now to start filling in the window. Okay, so I've got the filler on the 1-inch scraper here. And they're sort of forcing it into the hole here, as you can see. Like that. Same in here. Quite a deep hole, this one. if possible, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it slightly proud of the surface, because this filler can sink a bit as it's drying. So I'm going to leave it slightly higher. Just a touch more, and I think we're there. That bit. There we go. So as you can see, I've left it slightly high there, and I'll be rubbing that down obviously when it's dry. Okay, a little bit on this end here. There we go. So that's all done. It doesn't look brilliant at the moment, but it will do when it's rubbed down flat with the surface. So this is starting to go off now. I can feel it on the board. So what I need to do now is to clean off the knife and the board quickly, so I'm ready to mix up the next amount of filler. So what I need to do now is quickly to clean the tools off. I don't want it to set on the actual knives and things and on the board. So it's important that you do clean off the kit very quickly after you've used it. Then the old bit of filler that's still on the tools, you can either get a bit of white spirit on the cloth and just wipe it off, or when it's dry just rub it off with a bit of abrasive paper. Mix up a new batch, as you can see here. I've got a bit on the flat edge of my putty knife. I'm just going to fill in this little gap here, like that. There we go, that'll do. That's that one done. Good stuff. Now moving it along. Using the wide filling knife now. That's that one done. Now on this bit along here, what I'm going to do first of all is just put it on and pull it towards me like this, first of all, across where the filler needs to be. So all the way along like that to the end, because all that needed to be filled in. Then clean the knife off best you can on the edge of your board if you can. And now I put my finger on the knife there and press down and just pull it all the way along. And it gives a really nice smooth finish like that. Once more along that back edge. There we go. And it does leave it slightly proud of the surface, but when I sand it down that should look lovely and flat across there then. Okay. Then we've got these gaps here to do. Okay, leave it slightly proud of the surface again. That's that one. Last one over here. Like that. Just want to take a bit more of that off, I think, just down through there. There we go. That's those done. Great, so I think that's all the filling done on this window. Like I said earlier, this is the ideal filler for use on windows because it's waterproof, so it's not going to be affected by the moisture, and it's tough and durable filler. So I'm going to need to leave that dry now. So after about half an hour you can start to rub it down. So I'm going to leave that for a while, and I'll come back and we'll start to rub it down and get it lovely and smooth. Okay, so the primer's dry on the dent in the door here, so it's ready for filling. So I've mixed up a new batch of the filler here. So I've got my normal flexible filling knife here. Cover the surface like that. I just want to leave it slightly proud, like I did on the window you saw me do earlier. That's it, so I should just leave it like that. So the good thing about this filler is you can use it on any sort of defects you get in your timber at home. You could have splits, you could have cracks, you could have dents or holes in your woodwork, in your doors, your skirting board, your door frames. So this stuff is brilliant for that because it does adhere really well to the surface. It won't crack and fall out like the normal traditional powder-based fillers. So I need to leave that for about half an hour to an hour to dry, and I'll be able to rub it down and crack on. A very important safety point you need to bear in mind if you're going to be using these type of fillers inside is they do give off a lot of fumes, so you do need to make sure you've got plenty of ventilation, so open up the windows and doors to let the fumes out. Okay, well that's it, the filler's all dried nice and hard now, so it's ready to be rubbed down. And to do the rubbing down, I'm going to be using some of this 120 grade aluminium oxide paper. What I've already done is I've already put some onto one of my rubbing blocks here, so when I rub it down it gives a far flatter surface. If you haven't got one of these rubbing blocks, what you can do is you could just use a piece of wood and just wrap some of the paper around it like that. So before I start rubbing it down, I've got to quickly put my mask on. There we go, so I'm ready to go. Well, that's done a lovely job there. That's really nice and flat and smooth across there. So that's good. For the larger areas of filling you might have like this, what I suggest you do, and what I'm going to be doing, is to start off with some of the rougher 60 grade aluminium oxide paper, just to get the worst of it off before we're following up with the 120 grade. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crack on and rub down the rest of this filler, then we'll have a look at it when I've finished. Okay, so the filler's all dry on the door here, so I'm going to be rubbing it down with some of the 120 grade aluminium oxide paper again on my nice rubbing block. Put my mask on. Yeah, the benefit of using these rubbing blocks is it does give it a far flatter finish on the surface. Yeah, I don't feel any ridges there or any dip in the filler at all, so that's really good. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to brush on a bit of primer to seal it. There we go. That's all done, so the door's all ready for painting. Okay, so that's the old filler all nicely rubbed down now. All nice and smooth and nice and solid. So when I paint it over with the wood stain, it should provide a nice flat surface along the sill around the window, so that's brilliant. So what I'm going to be doing next is over the areas of filler, I'm going to be giving it one coat of the Sickens HLS, which is the thinner wood stain, to prime it. Then when that's dry, I'll then be giving it 2 or 3 coats of the top coat, the Filter 7. And when I've done all that, we'll come back and have a look at the finished window. Well, that's the door all painted up now. Looks a lot better, I must say, particularly where the key was bashing against the door down here, where that dent was in the door. I can't feel any ridge or anything there. So that's the really good thing about these sort of fillers. You can rub them down really smooth, so you've got a seamless layer of paint there. So that's brilliant. And that's the window finished as well. It's had several coats of the mahogany wood stains, looking far more solid where that area of what was. Nice and solid and sturdy along there. So the whole look of the window now is much improved, and it should stay looking like that, looking good for many years to come now. So I hope you found this video useful, and if you have, why not subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with all my latest videos.